Hello, everybody, and welcome to another World Football stream once again in the BR app and on the BR Football YouTube channel now. Hello to our YouTube chatters out there. My name's Adrian, also known as Rabona TV over on YouTube. I'm in my home grounds essentially. And today is a great day because today we speak about the Champions League. It comes back next week, everyone's favorite competition. I mean, at least I think so. So we're going to give my rankings or predictions for all of the teams that will make it into the knockout rounds. And now remember, this is the league phase after the shakeup to the competition format. So it's the top 24, essentially, as well as who I think the top scorer of this competition will be, who a breakout star could be, who a young star will be, and someone who I don't think will meet expectations. And you're going to want to stick around for that one because I'm sure some people are going to be distraught to hear about it. Now, as always, get your guesses in, get your comments in. And let's get started. We're going to start out with our list here of the top 24 teams, guys. So now, the team that you can see in 24th that I have just sneaking in is AS Monaco. I mean, I like the way that Adi Hutter has them playing typically. And if Pogba finds himself some form in the midfield, their attack will feast. Also, watch out for Mika Biereth. Watch out for him. I think that he'll start scoring a lot of goals with that service from Paul Pogba. Now, in 23rd, I have Atalanta. Now, they lost their coach of 9 years, of course, Gianpiero Gasparini, as we all know, but they have someone who is considered sort of a disciple of Gasparini and Ivan Juric. His teams typically struggle to generate chances and to score, but we'll see how things go. They've become a top European side, or at least always kind of there or thereabouts side over the last 6, 7 years. They'll still provide challenges, even if I think they'll be a little weaker than normal. In 22nd, I have Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, Eintracht Frankfurt tend to lose their star strikers every year, and then they find a new one that they get to sell for another, 80 to 100 million, something like that. Very difficult team, especially to play away against, as their crowd is lively. Dino Topmuller gets them playing some nice football. You can't sleep on Eintracht Frankfurt. In 21st, I have Club Brugge. Belgian side. Typically have a pretty solid team. Really love watching Zolis, the Greek winger. Really, really fun to watch him. And Onyedika in the midfield. Guy was wanted by West Ham, Galatasaray, a few other clubs this summer. Watch out for him as well. Will be difficult for them, I think. Pretty difficult, but they are capable of upsets as they showed last year. Now, in 20th, a Spanish side, I have Villarreal, who have a great coach, Marcelino, who you'll remember was at Valencia for a while, did great things there. Now, Villarreal made some nice signings in Renato Vega and Georges Mikotadze, the Georgian striker, not to mention two Canadians, by the way. Buchanan, one of them, scored a hat-trick already. So Villarreal, back in the Champions League after a few years. Do not sleep on Villarreal. And in 19th, I have Galatasaray. Now, I think Galatasaray will be kind of a surprise team in a sense, as they are very difficult to play against away. Plus, they have some big names now, like Leroy Sané, like Gundogan, as well as making Osimhen's transfer permanent. So a good team capable of some surprises. In 18th, Sporting Club de Portugal. Sporting sold off Gyökeres this summer, lost Amorim last season, but Rui Borges came in, saw out the league title as well as a cup win. Also, Luis Suarez, who they signed sort of as the replacement to Gyökeres, has been very good for them so far. So maybe not as prolific as Gyökeres was for Sporting, but he's looking very good early in this season. So Luis Suarez, not that Luis Suarez, another one. I think he came from Almeria. Watch out for him. Number 17, in 17th place, I have Bayer Leverkusen. Now, they had a wild start to the season already, as they already sacked Erik ten Hag, setting a record for the fastest sacking of Bundesliga history after just 2 match days. Tons of changes in the squad. They sold their entire squad, it feels like. But Kasper Hjulmand comes in, former Danish manager, as you'll remember. And if there's anyone who's good at sort of rallying a team during a time that is difficult, he's shown that he can do that. He plays some nice attacking football. So I think that Leverkusen could start slowly, but then end up being a good side in this. 16th, I have Atletico Madrid. Now, Atleti have also made a ton of signings, a ton, but it's hard to say if they will be a top team. I personally don't think that they will be, as I think that they will be, I think they will have a slow start and get better from there, but not good enough to be top 8. Lots of pressure on Diego Simeone once again. He always finds his way out of it, though, doesn't he? In 15th, I have Newcastle United. So Newcastle United, they lost Isak, of course, but then they signed a lot of players with the money they accrued from that sale, that huge sale, record sale. They proved a couple of years ago that they can be quite the quite a great home side. Really, really difficult to go to St. James Park. They have a strong midfield. Tonali, Joelinton, Bruno Guimaraes. They signed Ramsey as well. Their defense is strong. All of it. So Newcastle United will be a good team as well. Juventus, I have them in 14th, just ahead of Newcastle United. Now, they lost out in the knockout playoff last season. You'll remember against PSV, Ivan Perisic going crazy in that. This season, they have a clinical striker in Jonathan David, plus his old teammate Zagrova signed from Lille as well. So those two already have an understanding on the pitch. They got Gleison Bremer back in defense. Juve look a lot better to me, and I think that Igor Tudor is willing to play some attacking football while still being a little pragmatic as well. So I think he'll be a good fit for them. In 13th, I have my side, Benfica. Benfica had a pretty insane transfer window, if you've been keeping up with that. Richard Rios, Luka Bacchio, they got him on transfer deadline day. Sudakov from Shakhtar, Deric, Ivanovic, a lot of players coming into Benfica. We'll see how Bruno Lage does with them all, but he typically gets them up for the big game. So I think that Benfica will have a strong showing. And then in 12th, ahead of Benfica, I have Tottenham Hotspurs. Back in the competition for the first time since the 22-23 season. Lots of signings in the attack. New coach in Thomas Frank, who is more tactically flexible than Ange Postecoglou was. And honestly, they got a pretty good draw looking at the teams that they're coming up against. So Tottenham absolutely have some very winnable matches and should be advancing to the knockout rounds. In 11th, I have Borussia Dortmund. Now, I personally have trust issues when it comes to Borussia Dortmund. They seemingly come to life, though, and prove me wrong over and over again, just when I'm going to give up on them, Signing Niko Kovac, I didn't love that signing. It ended up being a good one for them so far, right? So I won't get burned this time. I have Borussia Dortmund in 11th, finding a way in 10th. I have Napoli. Now, these guys are kind of I call them the pot three trap team, Conte typically isn't great in European competitions, but this is a little bit different since it's the league phase. Champions of Italy, they grew stronger this summer with signings, will be a tough club to play against. Definitely not a team that you wanted to get drawn from pot three, that's for sure. And now we get to ninth. Now, ninth is an interesting one here, guys, because I'm worried about Manchester City, and I have them not making the top 8 this season once again. Now, the worry comes from the same place as last season, but before we get to that, their fixtures, because we got to remember who they're playing, because that absolutely comes into play here, right? Dortmund, Real Madrid, Bayer Leverkusen, Villarreal, Napoli, Bodo Glimt, Galatasaray, and AS Monaco. Now, last season, as you can see, we really saw Man City struggle in the Champions League. It was touch and go for them. They finished in 22nd. Remember, cutoff is 24. That's rough. That's very, very close to being eliminated. Now, so far this season, we have no evidence that would suggest that City won't have a similar issue at the back and in midfield as well. Namely, in the defensive side or holding midfielder position, because given Rodri is back, but he missed the first match of the season with some knee complications. So it's hard to say whether he'll be the same Rodri of prior to that ACL injury, right? He's since played a full 90 against Brighton, but they lost that game. They had the lead. They didn't take their chances, and then they let Brighton get back into it. So I don't think that Rodri will be able to hit the heights that he was at previously. I mean, even without the injury, it would have been very tough to sort of hit those Ballon d'Or winning levels, right? And he was so central to City's success, to protecting that back line, that I think some similar issues will plague Manchester City this season. Speaking of the back line, look, I'm a Benfica supporter. I love Ruben Dias. He's my guy. But it looks like he's playing through an injury or something. Kusanov, he still looks shaky, like he hasn't adapted yet. The back line, I just don't trust it. We'll see if Donnarumma will be able to sort of make up for defensive deficiencies. Another man who can make up for any sort of deficiencies is, of course, Erling Haaland. You have to speak about him and how he loves this competition. He's industrious in it. He has 49 goals and 48 appearances. That's not nothing. So if he's on smoke, that helps their case. But like last season, it's hard for me to look past the defense. It's hard for me to look past the midfield. They need John Stones to stay healthy to help out that defense. Donnarumma could, help with stopping goals, but how does he change their build-up play? How does he change how the defense sort of operates? without their distribution of Ederson for all the flaws that he had, without his great distribution, how does that change them, right? So that is why I have them in ninth place. Just ahead of them, I have the German Giants, Bayern Munich, in eighth, the final team to get a bye into the round of 16, the playoff avoiders. So Bayern nearly got the better of Inter last season, if not for their terrible defending from set pieces, right? Would they have defeated Barcelona? I don't think so. But now they have a fully evolved Michael Elise in the attack. This man is so effortless with it, like Aurelien Chouameni pointed out. As you can see, last season they finished in 12th. So it wasn't an overwhelming success for them, but decent. They still had to go through that knockout playoff. Now, with Olise in the attack, Harry Kane will never starve. You know, Harry Kane will be feasting all the time. And maybe Nicholas Jackson as well. I mean, we'll see about that. We'll get to that. But it's Bayern's attack that has me the most excited, despite losing Sane, Coman, Muller. Sane, maybe not the biggest loss. Muller becoming less effective, but a great option off of the bench, right? Anyway, who do they play? This is important, right? Chelsea, PSG, Club Brugge, Arsenal, Sporting, PSV, Union SG, or Union SG. I'm so used to saying Union for some reason. And Paphos from Cyprus. So not the easiest schedule, which is why I have them just slipping in. I think there will be some anxiety in this Bayern Champions League campaign because it would give me anxiety to watch their defense last season. And I'm not even a Bayern supporter, you know? Kim Min-jae, he has mistakes in him. Upamecano is great for the most part, but then we'll have a high-profile mistake in him a couple of times this season. Jonathan Tah, pretty damn good signing. So Davies should be back. That's something that's important to remember for their back line. So that will help. Will it be the same after an ACL injury? We'll see. But if they can avoid losing against Chelsea at home, hell, if they win, that will be massive. Arsenal away will be incredibly difficult, as will PSG away. But I'm fully confident that they can beat the pot 3 and 4 teams that they've been drawn against. So top 8 for them. An improvement on last season. Now, just ahead of them in 7th place, I have Inter. But it was really a coin flip for the teams in 7th and 8th, even 9th. I sort of went back and forth on it. But Inter, you know, got completely embarrassed in the final last season. Humiliating stuff, excuse me. Losing 5-0 in a final is just not what you ever want to happen, right? But prior to that, as you can see, their record in the league phase was absolutely outstanding. They finished in 4th on 19 points, 6 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. 11 goals for and 1 goal against. They were unbelievable. Jan Sommer, unbelievable in that campaign. The back line, Bastoni, Acerbi, looking great out there. Now, after losing that final, Simone Inzaghi said, you know, that's enough. Arrivederci. I'm going to go get that Saudi bag. Fair enough, I guess, right? Kind of left Inter in the lurch a little bit, and they went after Christian Kivu. Very inexperienced guy. I think he had 13 matches as a senior coach. So it's a bit of a gamble, right? What we saw at the Club World Cup, can't really judge Inter for that. It looked kind of samey from what they were playing under Inzaghi. But it's a good, so it wasn't a good reflection of how they wanted to play, but who they will be playing in this. Liverpool, Dortmund, Arsenal, Atletico. Whew, that's a tough top 4, I should say. Slavia Praha, Ajax, Kairat Almaty, and Union SG. So not the easiest run, especially to see the kind of performances that Inter put in against Udinese this season. There's a drastic difference in how Kivu wants Inter to press. And we saw the good side of it against Torino and the bad side of it against Udinese. So coming up against the big size, he may have them playing a bit more pragmatic, a bit closer to what Inzaghi was playing, but we'll see. It will be a little bit of a learning season for them, but I still think that they will do well based on beating the pot 3 and 4 teams and then maybe another win or so from the top pot 1 and pot 2 teams. But watch out for Petr Sucic, man. Watch out for Petr Sucic in their midfield. Really, really good midfielder. Give him the keys, and he will do great there. In 6th, I have Real Madrid. Now, 6th place, Real Madrid. We'll see. The thing about these guys, obviously they could finish higher. Things are looking promising under Xabi Alonso so far. I especially like how Kylian Mbappe is playing under Xabi Alonso. More on Kylian Mbappe later, by the way. And their defense looks decent. They had the lowest expected goals against in La Liga after the first two matches had been played. However, it's got to be said that they were matches that Real should always be winning. Osasuna, Oviedo, and then they also won a match against Mallorca. But against the teams they are drawn against, that defense will be tested far, far more, right? They have Man City, they have Liverpool away, Juventus, Benfica, Marseille, Olympiacos, Monaco, and Kairat Almaty. Yeah, they almost have to go to China to play against Kairat Almaty, which is unlucky. I was looking at the map. Do yourself a favor and look it up. Look up Almaty and how close it is to China. I think it's like 3,000 kilometers. I don't know what that is in miles. Sorry, I think it's like 2.3 or 5 miles. That's how close they're going to be to China. That's an insane trip that they're going to have to take. But anyway, City, Liverpool, those guys will give their defense a run for the money, of course. Even Benfica's attack has been bolstered a ton this season. But the thing is that with these top teams, I think the gap in the points is going to be so minimal, right? We had 5 points separating 6th through 22nd last season. That's nothing. So I think that Real Madrid will really, really beat up on those pot 2 and 3 teams. Kylian up against AS Monaco, that'll be fun to see. But the Xabi era will have some ups and downs in the first half of the season. And when they're playing against teams that sit back and counter, that defense could give up opportunities. Still, they have someone like Goulet who can provide a lot of service to Kylian Mbappe and unlock a deep block. So the next team after Real Madrid in 6th, I have in 5th place Chelsea. Chelsea making their return to the Champions League. And I personally think that they will be pretty good this season. And in this competition in particular, sure, their Premier League form, I think, will continue to be a little bit streaky at times, but they have shown that under Maresca, they got to be taken seriously as a tournament team. They won the Conference League, which, okay, let's be honest, they always should have won the Conference League. I mean, from the beginning of the season, we could see that they were probably going to win it, right? Then they went and won the Club World Cup, beating the Champions League winners, PSG 3-0 in the final, and it wasn't even close. And it feels sort of like this blue coat takeover of Chelsea, trying to right their wrongs, is finally at a point where it's like a competent sporting project. They made a ton of sales, made some good signings. The attack is looking great with Estevang in there as a regular. The midfield is superb with Enzo and Caicedo. I think that they could be a little light in defense. That could be one area where I'm a bit worried, but I think they'll be fine. They play against Barcelona, Bayern, Benfica, Atalanta, Ajax, Napoli, Pafos, and Karabag. You got to be happy with that draw for the most part. Should get, maximum points without question against Karabag, Pafos, Ajax, probably Atalanta as well, probably against Benfica as well. Napoli will be tough, but in with a strong opportunity. Barcelona would have me worried. Bayern also will be difficult, but Chelsea, I think, is good money for 5th place. In 4th, we have the defending champions, PSG. So one of the teams that will be favorites to finish up high, right? They've had minimal changes in their squad except for the big one, Donnarumma leaving. Guy was integral for the Champions League win last season. For me, without him in goal, they don't beat Aston Villa and they don't beat Arsenal. He was saving them. He was also huge in that shootout against Liverpool as well. That said, Chevalier is also a great keeper, slightly different profile, right? And Zubarny, who they added in defense, very good for the back line, because when Pacho was out, they looked a little bit light in defense, right? Beraldo didn't look like it. Marquinhos also isn't getting any younger. So the reason I don't have them top is simply because they have one of the most difficult schedules of all the teams in the competition. Now, they'll probably be favorites for every single one of these matches, right? Or most of them at least. But they play against Bayern, Barcelona, Atalanta, Bayer Leverkusen, Tottenham, Sporting, Newcastle United, and Athletic Club. They don't have any easy dunks per se. None of the debutants, nothing. They got the more difficult teams from each one of the pots. This is why I have them in 4th. Again, they will likely win the majority of the matches based on their quality, but it's definitely not going to be easy for PSG. Definitely not. And they have something to prove after that Club World Cup loss. I don't know about you, but that did not look good. Now, ahead of them, in 3rd place, I have Barcelona. FC Barcelona, a team that absolutely could have won last season, a team that lived and died by the sword, that exuberance to get forward, even when they just needed to have everybody back to close out the match against Inter, and that ended up burning them. But they're one of the teams that will go into this competition as one of the favorites. I think that's really safe to say. And looking at their fixtures, you can see that they have one of the more difficult match or league phase matches this season. Last season, as you can see, they finished in second place, second only to Liverpool. So they had a fantastic, fantastic run in that Champions League phase, scoring a ton of goals, 28 goals. Are you serious? But also not airtight defense. That's the thing that you get with them, and that's why they're so entertaining, right? So this season, they're playing against PSG, which is, hell yeah. Can't wait for that match. I think it's on October 1st or something like that. Um, Chelsea, Frankfurt, Club Brugge, Olympiacos, Slavia Praha, Copenhagen, and Newcastle United. Now, remember, they lost to Eintracht Frankfurt a few years ago in the Europa League, but I think they'll be fine. Olympiacos, Slavia, Copenhagen, Club Brugge, no worries against those teams. Newcastle United will not be easy to go away to. Always a difficult place, especially with them reinforcing their midfield and their attack. So we'll see. It will be fun to see them playing against Chelsea. It always harkens back that memory of the Didier Drogba "it's a disgrace" moment, that iconic moment when they're chasing down the referee. PSG at home. Like I said, incredible match. Luis Enrique against his former club. So I think Barcelona will be a top 3 team, but not top 2. Still one of the best in the league, but not the best. Now, at number 2, did Liverpool pull it off again? Did they get first again, in my opinion? No, they didn't. Last year's club that finished first, Liverpool, I have them in second. They have, of course, strengthened like no other team this season, spending a full 150 million more than the second place spending Chelsea, which is insane. And that got some huge talents in, some great younger talents to give Slot options and how he wants his team to play, like Florian Wirtz, Ekitike, Kerkez, Frimpong, Isaac. Great, great signings. I do still think they needed a center back, and they really tried to pull that off with Mark Gahey, but Crystal Palace pulling out of that deal, that could hurt them a little bit. But strengthening aside, Liverpool have a pretty tricky group of teams to play against. Real Madrid, Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, Frankfurt, PSV, Marseille, Karabag, and Galatasaray. Eintracht Frankfurt, Galatasaray, Marseille, and Inter are notoriously difficult places to play away from. Their fans whip up a frenzy, and it makes it very difficult for the opponent. So Liverpool have a few difficult away matches to contend with, and I could see them getting a few draws because of that. Dropping more points than Arsenal will, who, spoiler alert, I do have in first place. But as we saw last season, these margins are going to be incredibly close. It will be, 1 point of separation. So why don't we move on to the top ranked team, in my opinion? And I have that as Arsenal, as I just spoiled there a moment ago. But I'll tell you why. I think they'll be really, really happy with the draw that they got. They were one of the strongest sides last season. I mean, having defeated Real Madrid handily, and honestly should have made it past PSG if not for Gigi Donnarumma stopping everybody, stopping Martinelli, stopping Trossard, stopping Odegaard, making insane saves. And they've only increased the strength of the squad. With the additions of Madueke, Gyökeres, Zubimendi, Ebeeze, Hincapié, etc. So Arsenal will be one of the teams to beat out in this competition based on their squad strength and their experience. They made that deep run, and they'll be playing for revenge. Teams who lose a final, I expect them to play for revenge in the next season. But also look at who they're playing, which is what I was sort of alluding to at the beginning. Bayern and Inter. Okay, I'm not going to say that that's easy. Then Atletico Madrid. Not exactly easy. Club Brugge, Olympiacos, Slavia Praha, Kairat Almaty, and Athletic Club. I think that if you're Arsenal, you can see them winning against Atleti at home, Club Brugge, Olympiacos, Slavia Praha, Kairat, and Athletic Club. And they'll be super competitive against Inter and Bayern. So for me, Arsenal are going to play well in the league phase. They'll beat up on the teams that they should be beating, and we'll keep it very close against the bigger names. And hey, I think that this is the season where they make a really, really good run once again. Maybe they make that final this time. And if they do, anything can happen. And we can look to Mikel Arteta as a football god, right? That light bulb guy. But anyways, guys, that is the ranking that I have. As you can see, 1 through 8 there on the left. Arsenal, Liverpool, Barcelona, PSG, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Inter, and Bayern Munich. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to some quick fire awards, I guess you could call them. And the first one, or prediction for me, is the guy who's going to be the top scorer. A few names come to mind, right? Rafinha, Gyökeres, Erling Haaland. Will Guirassy be good again? Kylian Mbappe. None of those guys would be poor choices. One of them I think could be a poor choice. But as far as someone who I think is going to have a top year, for me, it's Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe is absolutely central to Xabi Alonso's plans this season, it feels like. There's no more of this, how do I get Vinicius and Mbappe on the pitch to play at a relatively good level? Nah, it's Mbappe is the priority right now. And personally, I think that's how it should be. We've seen Rodrigo get a chance on the left, Vinicius get a chance on the left, but Mbappe has been a constant. And he's off to a great start. 3 goals in 3 matches. It was announced that he will be taking both the penalties and the direct free kicks, so there's not going to be any mysteries about it. So he will rack up more goals there. And with him being the focal point, with Real Madrid improving on their defense, and with Arda Güler providing the service for Kylian Mbappe, I see him scoring a ton in the Champions League this season. Now, the next one I have for breakout player, there are a few good options, but a guy who I think will go on to have more influence as the season sort of rolls on is none other than the FC Barcelona wonder kid or future wonder kid, Marc Bernal. Now, Bernal was supposed to have his breakout season last season, but unfortunately, tragically, he had that ACL injury very, very early in the season. But from everything we've seen prior, he looks to be an absolute incredible talent in central midfield, right? He had already been compared to Sergio Busquets at the age of 16, and Barcelona certainly does have a pedigree of producing really good central midfielders, no? So when it comes to the defensive midfield position, look, maybe not the sexiest position and when you think of football, right? But it can be. It certainly can be. It's not free for him to grab that position at Barcelona, but it's certainly up for grabs. He can shield the defense. He can cover the defense well. He can recover the ball and then push it forward quickly as he's a very accurate and progressive passer of the ball, which is what you want to see. So for me, he'll be sort of the breakout player. Another young kid from Barcelona. What a surprise, right? Now, speaking of young kids, let's go to the young player of this season. And my guy that I'm going to be looking to is Esteban Willian of Chelsea. He turned 18, like 5, 6 months ago, something like that. And he's showing the world that of the 2 big names that came out of Palmeiras recently, Esteban is ahead of Endrick, in my opinion. Still time for all to change, but right now is Esteban all day. He's hit the ground running at Chelsea, looking sharp, looking fearless, sending defenders in every direction, playing quality balls in the box as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he was to score this weekend against Brentford. He just scored for Brazil, so he's in great form, full of confidence. But yes, for his first taste of Champions League football, I think that Esteban is really going to shine and be an important part of Chelsea's attack. Him on one flank, Pedro Neto on the other, Palmer and João Pedro through the middle. It's going to be nightmares for defenses. And Esteban showed at Palmeiras that he was effective in another continental competition, the Copa Libertadores. So he's not scared of the bright lights, right? And now, guys, the final award, which is not an award at all, but it is the guy who's not going to meet expectations. And I say this as the competition rolls along because I'm taking the knockout rounds into account as well. And it's not nice to say, but as someone who watched a ton of him at Sporting, I think that Victor Gyökeres is going to ghost in some of the big matches against big opponents in this competition. Now, he had a knack for doing that when he was at Sporting. It kind of became something that you come to expect of him. He's always dangerous, of course. You cannot just let him go and expect that he'll do nothing in the match. No, but he tends to score the majority of his goals against lesser opposition. That's sort of what I noticed. So when it comes time for the knockout rounds, I think big money Gyökeres is going to be under a lot of scrutiny. We already saw him ghost against both United and Liverpool. It's early, but that would be nothing new from what I've seen of him playing against, the big teams in Portugal, as well as when he was in the Champions League. So brilliant player. Just he's 50-50 against the big guns. And for the money paid for him and the expectation and the scrutiny, I don't know that he'll quite meet expectations when they come up against bigger opposition in the latter stages of the tournament. But I could be wrong. I'd be happily proven wrong because you know what they always say is that football makes a fool of us all. And guys, that's it. That's it from me. This was a long stream, so I thank you for sticking around. Be sure to join us every week for football streams hosted by yours truly, both in the app or on the BR Football YouTube page. Other than that, look, enjoy the matches. Take care, guys.